part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
And welcome to another Reghi Roda podcast powered by MGM Northfield Park right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. And as we always do, got to give a shout out to the man, the myth, the legend, man who makes it all work so you out there in the podcast sphere can hear what Reghi and Roda are talking about. That would be Ty Courts, our outstanding producer. Ty, thank you so much. And Michael Reghi, oh boy, you and I were texting before the Browns-Texans game, and we gave our predictions, and I don't think we were the only ones that were far off in this one. I don't think a lot of people had the Browns losing to the Texans today, 45-14. I think, hey, we knew if Flacco turned the ball over, which he did, the Browns could lose. But, Michael, 45-14, I never saw that coming.
Completely out of character for what we've come down the stretch knowing the Cleveland Browns to beat Kenny. And no, earnestly, hey, listen, when down through the years, us being together, when, we felt this is going to be a tough one, not going to win today, more than likely we said so. That wasn't the case for this one. No, I had felt very, very good that the Browns were going to be able to do the type of things that would take advantage of what I felt anyway, Ken, was some of the positives they had on their side of the ledger, and none of that happened today. But, Ken, when you turn the football over, and as we'll talk about, and they resulted 14 points, I mean, that puts you in a real bad way, and extremely disappointed, too, in Jim Schwartz's defense today, Kenny, as they were skewered and torn apart with big plays.
By a rookie quarterback who becomes the youngest quarterback that is a rookie in NFL history to win a playoff game, surpassing that of Michael Vick by so many days. C.J. Stroud dissected, did whatever he wanted, only missed on 5 passes the entire game. A quarterback rating, I think, did he have a perfect quarterback rating or pretty close to it, Michael? What was it? 157.2 was C.J. Stroud's quarterback rating against the number 1 defense. But, Michael, should we really be surprised that the defense played this poorly on the road? Because, let's be honest, they've pretty much stunk on the road all season long, giving up an average of over 31 points per game. So should we be shocked by this performance by this defense on the road?
That's a very valid point. And if you break it down through the course of the season, that's absolutely correct. I've never seen a football team. Kenny, we know, look, sure, a team is going to play better at home.
Right.
Sure. Well, if you can't, then, you really got problems. But Ken, to this degree and to that extent, you wondered throughout the course of the season that, this is such an abstract difference. The way that those numbers turn up home road. But right. You figured, never in my wildest dreams did I think that what was going to happen, what took place today with the inability, it looked like I hate to say it, but it looked like their preparation and what they looked at or whatever they did, game planning and on tape, was a complete zero. In fact, it was like the weather in Kansas City tonight on the negative side as you're watching Kansas City and Miami play. Just dumbfounding, Ken. Hey, look, again, sure, we're going to give credit to, Bobby Slowik's their offensive coordinator, right? And the way that they game plan today. But, I mean, my goodness, to see that defense Ken, I said a couple of times today, a good high school team could have beaten that Browns defense today. It looked that porous. It looked like, again, did they game plan for this? Did they work situationally against this? It didn't look like it to me in a lot of different instances today.
What shocked you more, Reg? Flacco's 2 pick sixes or the defense before those pick sixes already had the team down 24-14, gave up 24 points in the first half. CJ Stroud in the first half alone, Michael Reghi, okay? In the first half alone, 236 yards and all 3 touchdowns. So what shocked you more, the defensive performance or Flacco losing the magic and throwing back-to-back pick sixes?
While the pick sixes were abhorrent, if I could bring that word out, absolutely just beyond description, that he put the ball in harm's way like that. A guy, and you say, well, Reggie, he's always done that. Yeah, well, okay, I get it. He's the gunslinger and takes chances. Okay, but in that situation, you just flat out can't do it. But Kenny, as bad as he was, and that performance was, I got to say the defense was, I mean, you can say out of character, but out of character, again, that was as weak and as poor a performance as I've seen in that kind, in a playoff game, an NFL team come out and show up like that. And like I said, Ken, did it not look like, did they prepare for this football game defensively? Or are they going to say that they were just completely taken aback by the things that CJ Stroud and Houston were doing? No, come on now. Now, who's going to buy that? It looks like you if you game plan this week, it absolutely, there's got to be a lot of questions asked. And if I'm Kevin Stefanski, because, you're at the foot of the fire now, right? It's you're the head coach, but man, I'm taking Schwartz and those defensive coaches in and kind of really taking them to task, as in, what in the F was that?
Reg, the Flacco that we saw today, if you remember when we did the podcast when they signed him, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't for the signing. I was like, hey, go get Nick Foles, right? I saw enough of Flacco last year. He was 3-14 in his last 17 starts. He was a statue that'll get sacked quite a bit. And he made me eat my words, through the 5 regular season games where he threw for over 300 yards 4 times. They went 4-1. Yes, he turned it over with interceptions 8 times, and I think 1 fumbled 9 times, but 13 touchdown passes. So it was looking like, no, that Joe Flacco was gone. And then today, the Flacco I saw today was the one I thought they were getting when they signed him, right? And, in harm's way, under pressure, making bad decisions, and both of those get returned. The game was still in the balance at 24-14. The defense actually got a stop to start the second half. The Browns are driving in Houston territory, I think at the 34-yard line. It was only first down, Michael, right? And Flacco throws the first pick six, an 82-yard return. And then near midfield, he throws the second pick six on the very next drive. So as soon as he threw the pick six, that was the ball game right there, the first one. And then for sure, after the second one, I could hear Dandy Dawn in the background. Turn out the lights, the party's over. They say that all good things must end. Well, it ended right then and there for the Browns as they would go on to lose 45-14. So the Flacco that I saw today was the one I thought they were getting. It just took a few games for that to rear its ugly head. But the defense today, Michael, they led twice in this game. They led 7-0 and 14-10. And then the defense, you know what it reminded me of, Reg, and you'll appreciate this, having done Baltimore Oriole games on TV for so many years, right? Mm-hmm. Your offense goes out and gives you a 2-0 lead in the first inning, right? The pitcher comes out, takes the mound in the next inning, and then he gives up 3 runs. A 3-run homer, just like that. So all the momentum and the lead that you had was gone. That's what the Browns defense reminded me of. It's 14-10. Looks like, okay, Browns are back in control. Very first play from scrimmage by the Texans, 76-yard touchdown pass. 17-14, and really that was it. That's the last time the Browns led.
Yeah, well, and the thing too, Kenny, the thing that they've avoided this year defensively is giving up the big play touchdowns, right? And then today, they just come out and rear their ugly head, and you can't do it. You just cannot give up big plays like that turn into instant points, because it's going to be very difficult to win a playoff game that way on the road. And just extremely disappointing. I can't tell you when I have been as disappointed and disillusioned for Browns fans, and we've gone through that a lot, right, during the course of many years. But Ken, today, for me, I don't even want to go back and think about, some of the other disasters, really, because that doesn't do any good either. However, this one today, to me, is right up there with some of the worst, the just complete and meltdown breakdowns that you're going to find as you go back in the annals of the Browns. And what you thought was I really felt good about this team winning this game today. And if you'd have told me that the defense, Ken, was going to get skewered and just completely torn apart today like this, I would have told you absolutely not. And you could have got all my money, because I would have said you're crazy. Yeah. Not happening that way. Oh, yeah. Good football game, play well, and, it's a playoff game. Maybe lose in a close game on either a late Houston drive, okay, or a late Browns drive that doesn't put points on the board. That's the way you lose. Well, okay, yeah, sure. That's pretty much a given in playoff football. But Kenny, this way, again, when I don't know defensively who was putting that together today or what that was all about, because all year long, and probably me more than you, just handing out the bouquets and the plaudits to Jim Schwartz all year long, and his defensive unit, his coaches, and the players. What a dud today. Oof. What a complete and utter dud they put on this city and this football fan base today. As I said, I mean, really, I'm not trying to be flip, but abhorrent. I mean, it was atrocious the way they played on that side of the ball today.
Reg, touchdown passes or runs of 76 yards, 37 yards, 19 yards, 15 yards by by Houston's offense against the Browns defense. And then Houston's defense had touchdown returns of 82 yards and 36 yards. So they had 4 touchdown scores of 36 yards or more, 2 on offense, 2 on defense. And to your point, how horrible was this loss today by the Cleveland Browns? It is the Browns' worst postseason loss since losing to the Baltimore Colts 34-0 in 1968. That's how bad this 45-14 loss was today.
Yeah, it defied description. I mean, I'm going to ask you. I mean, what was going through because the thing that we've talked about every week doing R&R after the Browns games this year was, defensively, this football team has got it together. They find a way, even in a tight football game, to come up with the plays that are needed to either put the offense in a extremely positive position to go win it, or to win the football game. And like I said, today, I don't know any other way to say it. It just looked like whether it was their preparation, whether it was a complete fail on what they thought they could accomplish, and had just no clue comprehending that they were going to have trouble with Stroud in that offense, right? All of that. I just, a couple times I just stared and couldn't believe some of the missed assignments, the missed tackles, between broken tackles and receivers or ball carriers can run and free, right?
Yep.
Just running free, whether it's for the touchdown plays or for plays that should have been 5-yard gains that turned into 25-yard gains. Yeah. Running free. To me, that's assignment and alignment, a lot of that. And you know, like I said, Jim Schwartz, well, he's got two choices here. He's either going to have to take it and eat it, or what's the other, Kenny? He can't blame the players, can he?
No.
He can't do it. I mean, and maybe he's sitting there tonight saying, what are these? What kind of fail did they put out there today for me? It's probably a little bit of both, Ken, right? It usually is, but abhorrent, just absolutely, and quite frankly, unacceptable. Unacceptable in this kind of game.
It looked like Joe Woods was coaching today, right? That's what it reminded me. I'm sitting there, and I was out at Jersey's in Stark County, Browns backers, out there in Canton, and I'm watching this, and I'm looking at the stats on my phone while I'm watching, and people are coming up and talking to me, and I said to somebody, boy, this resembles last year's defense. Did Joe Woods sneak into the game today? And is he disguised as Jim Schwartz on the sideline? Because I couldn't get it. I have 0 sacks, right? They sacked
none.
Flacco 4 times. Stroud, I think maybe was hit twice the entire game. 0 sacks. Laramie Tunsil dominated Myles Garrett today. Myles Garrett, non-factor today. Non-factor. There was one player on defense who played well for the Browns, who seemed to give everything he had, and that was Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Other than that, Denzel Ward's not. Greg Newsome was, he was dog crap today, as Sindelar used to say. He was terrible. The entire defense was, with the exception of JOK, and offensively, they couldn't run the ball, so that meant Flacco had to throw it. And, he had a couple others that could have been intercepted. And Turnover Joe showed up today, right? That's 11 turnovers in 6 games for Turnover Joe, unfortunately.
Yeah, very unfortunately. And again, it's going to, because look, I mean, Joe Flacco is, I wouldn't think he's going to quarterback another football game for the Cleveland Browns, even if they decide to bring him back, which I don't know if that's a real good idea at this point. And again, I'll raise my hand because, we were extolling the virtues of him.
Yep.
Well, sure, when he wins 4 or 5 football games. And like you said, I know you had some when they signed him. I know you were like, I don't know. But then, of course, he wins and wins. Well, what else are we supposed to say on R&R? I mean, you look like, you want to rip the guy. He came in and if up until save the season, in essence,
right,
with his quarterback play. But you just when you see the throws that you can tell are forced, Kenny.
Yep.
And you can tell he's throwing in a panic and into multiple coverages. You just said it. There were easily 2, if not 3 more that could have been picked off today. And but look, I mean, how many times you say, yeah, Clark, my quarterback threw 2 pick sixes and we still won. No. Usually you can take that and put it in the bag and throw it in the garbage, because when you throw 2 pick sixes, you aren't going to win. And couldn't run the ball at all today, too, Ken. Could not run the football a lick. You and I might have had a better shot at gaining a couple of yards against this. And so, there I got to blame the offensive line, too. Could not get a run game going, could not get anything established. And if you and I would have known that, how many times he threw it today? Was it 52? Somewhere in there?
Hold on, I got the box score here. He ended up, Flacco was 34 for 46, 307 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, 4 sacks, had a quarterback rating of 80.6, while C.J. Stroud's quarterback rating was 157, and he was 16 of 21 for 274.
So, well, there you go. You throw 46 times. No, not a recipe for success, is it? Especially on the road. And you just say Stroud throws it 21 times, has a much better day, and they win the football game going away. Going away. Yeah. And even if you take away the 2 pick sixes, they still would have won the football game by a couple of touchdowns, I believe. So, it's a rough way to go out, Kenny, and it leaves a real bad taste. And, I know there's going to be a lot of people that want to, and I get it. You're backing your team, and, hey, there are a lot of great things that happened this year. But, Ken, when it ends in that kind of a disaster and leaves that kind of bad taste, I don't know about most of you, but it's hard to get rid of. It's hard to get rid of and go back and then start to look at everything that was good about this year. And there were many good things, but right now it's very difficult to want to wave any pom-poms about that.
Reg, what's this say about Stefanski? I mean, might win, probably going to win. Coach of the year, did a hell of a job in the regular season, right?
Yeah.
But here we are in the postseason, biggest game of the year. And to your point earlier in this podcast, it looked like at times, defensively, even offensively at times, that they weren't prepared, that they didn't make adjustments, and they get blowed out 45-14. We talk about Flacco. Do you blame him? Do you blame Schwartz in the defense? What about the amount of blame on Stefanski for this performance?
There has to be a stain on that. This is the way you got, again, just extremely lit up, roughed up, and told to exit the playoffs like you were some rank clown show that they let in. Because, right? I mean, and look, I'm not trying to be, and again, sorry for all of you that, hey, Reghi and Roda, listen, we've done nothing but give Kevin Stefanski and his coaching staff big-time props. Like I said, throw a world of flowers at them, and rightfully so. They were good this year. But don't try to tell me when you come out and put up this kind of ass whipping. And when you, as you just alluded to, at times you look like, did you prepare for this team in this football game? And if you did, what kind of guidelines were you using as what you thought would be successful?
Right.
Because you didn't have the damn right ones. If you want to try to tell me that, we thought we could take advantage of this. Well, it became real obvious that any of that you couldn't. So, I mean, Kenny, it's like anything else. When you get the attaboys and you get the pats on the back and like I said, the flowers, you've got to take all that is thrown out with all of the bad stuff after a clunker like that. And that's just the way it is. And Kevin Stefanski knows that. He knows that. I mean, this is going to go down on because nobody expected this. I don't think anybody expected this. Not like this. Like I said, you lose a tight football game? Well, sure. That's something that I think we all would could at least comprehend and understand that this is the playoffs. But like this, you're right. Got off to the good start. But Ken, as soon as those two, I don't know, to me, 21-14, and then went 20. It's over. It was done.
Reg, I look at this team, and as painful as this loss is for Browns fans, and it's painful because it's one of the worst, right, in postseason history, okay? I expected them to win today, but that was it. I thought they'd get one win because they were playing without their starting left tackle and their 2 starting right tackles and without their best running back and their 3rd-string quarterback who's going to be 39 next week. And, he turned back the clock a little bit. Reality set in today as that Flacco magic vanished, right? So I look at this and I go, okay, yeah, they're going to lose next week probably anyways. But like you said, to lose the way they, I thought my thinking on this was Flacco turns it over late. The Texans go ahead, the Browns drive down, and then they got to rely on this Riley Patterson to kick a game-winning field goal. He misses it, and the Browns, I thought they would lose if they lost in a close game, something like that. But never in my wildest dreams did I see 45-14 and just the embarrassing way the defense played the entire game. And then, turnover Joe Flacco with those two horrible. I know his arm got hit the one time, but I don't know where he was going. As I'm watching that play and they showed the replay, I'm like, was he trying to throw deep to somebody who was behind the defense? Was he trying to throw it out of bounds? Was he trying to throw it to Njoku? I don't know who he was trying to get it to when his arm got hit. And then I get it on 4th and 2. You've got to throw the ball no matter what. You can't take a sack. So at least he put it up there, but he stared his target down. I think it was Harrison Bryant on that 4th and 2 play, and he was double covered. Yeah. And so that was a bad read on his part. I get it. You had to throw it, but there wasn't anybody else that might have had a better chance to come down with the ball. So I just this was an embarrassing end to this season for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, without question. As we said, and you got to, unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about it but swallow it and take it. And hopefully you never see it again. Not in this type of situation where, you got a good feeling that you can at least get to the second round here in the playoffs. So,
hey, Reg, I'm going to interrupt real quick. Let me just ask you, do you think the Browns at all, just trying to figure this shit out from today, okay? Do you think at all that they took the Texans lightly because what they did to them a few weeks ago, even though it was Case Keenum and Davis Mills, they win that game 36-22 or whatever it was. Do you think they went in overconfident, hearing all the love and all the, like you said, the bouquets that were being thrown their way and everybody on TV picking them, the odds makers had them as a favorites? Do you think they were overconfident going into this game?
First blush, I want to say, damn, I sure hope not.
Right.
But you can make a case that by their play that it looked that way at times today.
Okay.
And which is, that's damn tough to digest though, Ken.
Right.
I mean, that if that is the case, that they went in this football game and used a couple of weeks ago to let them get full of themselves and believe they could go into Houston again and repeat that, then shame on them. I mean, really shame on them and all of them. I haven't even looked or listened yet. I'll be real honest with you. I'm not going to try to deceive anybody. I haven't even looked or listened to Stefanski's postgame.
Oh, I heard it.
I don't know if you did. I just didn't want to hear no BS.
You know it's bad when the head coach says, I don't know, I got to look at the film. I can't. We win as a team, we lose as a team. I got to look at the film. Give them credit, right? When you hear those canned answers, right, then you know it was a bad loss. Either A, and maybe, no, this is probably what he was doing. I don't want to throw any individual player under the bus, right?
Right.
Yeah. So he's giving you that. Here's the other thing that I heard is I was listening to the post-game show on my drive home from the Browns backers. Gerard Cherry, who is on the Browns radio network, does the sideline reporting. 3 Super Bowl rings with the New England Patriots. So he was on the Browns sideline. He came on the post-game show and said, I didn't see any intensity. I didn't see any of that anger or that excitement or that intensity that is needed, especially from the defense, right, to go out there and win a playoff game. And so I heard him say that, and that's why I brought up the question to you about did they take him lightly because of all the love they were getting and the storybook ending or whatever storybook another chapter with Flacco and the fact that they had defeated them by 18 points, 16 points the last time they played. So I put all that together. That's why I figured I'd throw that question your way.
Well, and if Gerard said that, Gerard and I work together a lot. He's a straight shooter.
Yep.
And he usually does not hide things or hold things back, and good for him. Good for him, because we know when you're with a team like that, at times you kind of don't put out everything out there that you know in order to protect at times. So,
Yes.
boy, I'll be damned, Kenny, if that's the case, then that's really something that, and then that again goes right to the head coach and the coaching staff, as in guys aren't ready to play. Hey, you're not ready to play a playoff game, then wow. We're talking about some extra negativity here then, right?
Absolutely. Hey, let's do this, Reg. Let's get a break in here on the R&R podcast. When we come back, as we bury this one, the autopsy's over. We're burying this sucker now. They're done. We got to look ahead to next year and what needs to be done to make sure this doesn't happen next year. So we'll start focusing on the offseason for Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski and your Cleveland Browns.
What's up, everyone? I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Tyrus Powell.
And we are your hosts of The Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need to get you through the regular season, hopeful postseason, and I'd say off-season, Tyrus, but is there really ever an off-season for this team?
Thankfully for our podcast, Holly, there really never is when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. Don't miss our breakdown of each week's matchup, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we know, Holly, dogs gotta eat.
Yes, they do. So hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Orange is Oranger, Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
Hey, the Roadman, Kenny Roda here for the Reghi Roda podcast. And as the new year is upon us, just want to remind you that Northfield Park is still your home for live and simulcast racing. Doors open at noon every day for simulcasting. Live racing Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday, with the first post always at 6 p.m. Thursday, January 18th. Mark it down in your calendar. Free $5 match play from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. and a weekly $900 Sunday handicapping contest featuring Gulfstream Park with registration beginning at 11 a.m. Free admission, free parking every day at Northfield Park, and tell them the Reghi Roda podcast sent you their way.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
And we continue with the Reghi Roda podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network, brought to you by MGM Northfield Park. And Michael Reghi, Browns go 11-6 in the regular season, 0-1 in the postseason. Embarrassing 45-14 loss to the Houston Texans to end it. So let's look ahead to what needs to be done so this can be avoided next year. Now, we know Flacco's not going to be the quarterback of this team next year. It's supposed to be Deshaun Watson if he heals properly. So let's start right there. From what you saw from Deshaun Watson in his 6 starts this year, Michael Reghi, he goes 5-1. Were you happy with his performance, and do you feel good moving forward if he is back healthy to 100% with Deshaun Watson?
Overall, yes. Of course, there's some facets and aspects of that Browns offense that you would like to see get a little bit cleaned up. Not an excuse, Ken, but I do think that we have to incorporate and throw in, you lose, like we owe one of the top 3 running backs in the National Football League. That's not easy to overcome. I know every team has injuries. I get it. I get it. And nobody's using that as a crutch. It hurt. There's no question about it. When you lose Nick Chubb and don't have that type of production, and Kenny, it's more than just the production, as we know. It's what opponents have to game plan for you, right?
Yep.
Against. That's no longer there. Though you got to play through that. Nobody's going to cry for you or woe was the Browns. So you got to play through it. I thought Deshaun Watson showed some strong steps forward of improvement with this Browns offense as he got a little bit more familiar and comfortable with it. And Kenny, I do believe we're going to continue to see that kind of upstretch from Deshaun Watson heading forward with this offense. Certainly like to see it get them a couple of more pieces. I don't know. In addition to Amari Cooper, I'd like to see a real strong number 2 wide receiver with them, a guy that can get in the end zone and maybe get you 6-7 touchdown catches. They certainly don't have that. I know David Njoku had a real good year, and Njoku's kind of a hybrid, but I do think they need to add to that pass receiving room, Ken. And also, even though for the most part of the year, I'm still not 100% comfortable with that defensive secondary. I think that I know that at times they'll flash and make some plays, but I think overall too, we see, I don't know, we see some of the better quarterbacks really go after them. I mean, look at that LA. Well, Matthew Stafford torched them and lit them up, right?
Right.
And we've seen that. I mean, if you want to say that today, I know it was a big plays, but what did Deshaun, CJ Stroud had thrown? What did he have? 250 at halftime today?
Pretty close to it, yeah.
I mean, you can't. You got to be a little bit better there. So there are some things I think that need to get cleaned up. Yes. Are there coaching staff changes that need to be made, or something that Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski need to look at? I think they will. But I don't know, Kenny. I still don't see them unless they take some strong steps forward in some of these areas. I don't know. I mean, the bottom line is you want to be able to play for and win a Super Bowl, right? Yep. I don't know. Do you see them there?
No.
Yet?
No,
I don't either.
No, not at all, Reg. I look at this team and, okay, Deshaun Watson, you have to feel better about him, right? 5-1, even though he had like 1.5 really good games. But he did go 5-1. And what do we always say? Quarterback rating's great, but what's your record? Well, they're 5-1 with him as the starter this year. So that's a positive. So I feel good about that. Nick Chubb, is he ever going to be the same, Reg, after that horrific injury?
Oh, God, we can only hope so.
Yeah, keep my fingers crossed for him, right?
Absolutely.
So I don't know. I bring back Kareem Hunt. I like he on off. If I'm singling out JOK earlier in this podcast for the one player on defense that played worth a damn today, I got to give love to Kareem Hunt, who scored the 2 touchdowns, one on the ground, one on a shovel pass, and David Njoku, who had a nice game today. Okay. Yeah. Other than that, I'm not ready to single out anybody else. But I bring back Hunt along with Chubb and Ford. Okay. Hopefully, at some point, maybe not until the midway point of the season, Chubb's able to give you some. But my biggest concern, Reg, on the offense, I'm almost there with you as wide receiver, my number one concern. But for me, left tackle is my biggest concern for this football team. And Garion, whatever his name was that played there today, Christian Garion or Garion Christ, I don't even know who the hell he was, right? God bless him for stepping in and doing a decent job. But Jed Wills ain't the answer. I'm sorry. They screwed that up when they didn't draft Tristan Wirfs and took Jed Wills instead in the draft. So for me, I'm going out either via trade or via the free agent market, and I'm looking for a starting left tackle to protect my franchise $230 million quarterback. That's priority number 1 on offense for me. And priority number 2 then, Reg, would be that number 2 wide receiver who eventually might turn into a 1 when Amari Cooper's time is up.
Yeah.
That's that side of the ball. Defensively, I like what I saw out of JOK this year, Reg, but I still need me a game changer, a difference maker for 17 weeks, not 10 out of 17, not 12 out of 17. No offense, Myles Garrett. Okay. And I know he gets double teamed a lot and he's the all-time leading sack guy, first team all-pro and all that. But I'm still waiting, Reg. I'm still waiting for that big game, big play, season-changing, legacy-defining play from the number 1 overall pick. Yeah, I know I'm being hard on him, but guess what, damn it? He's the number 1 overall pick. He's supposed to make a Troy Polamalu play, right? He's supposed to make a Mike Singletary play or a Lawrence Taylor type play in a playoff game of this magnitude, and he got eaten up by Laramie Tunsil today. So, okay, you have him to build your defense around, and again, he may win Defensive Player of the Year this year. God bless him, but I'm still waiting for that big play from him, and they need maybe to give him some help at the linebacker position, right? A thumper, as you like to say, at that linebacker position, to take some of the pressure off him, and thus maybe that will allow him to make those big plays somewhere down the line.
That's fair, and you're not wrong. Because again, yes, there's no question that he probably is the most focused of all the opponents.
Yes.
In terms of how they got to deal with them. But you just said it. You said it great. I don't need to really add to it. You got to have that guy's got to be able to make game-changing plays for you. And come up with that force in that fumble. Come up with that big-time sack or 2 when you absolutely got to have it.
Yep.
And that's what you need to see from your main guy, Myles Garrett, because that's what the other top players on the best teams in the NFL do, especially defensively. They find a way to get the football back for your team. Keep the opposition out of the end zone, and get the ball back for you too. And I need to see a little bit more of a step up from that with Myles. Everybody's got their personalities, Ken, but I think it's fair. I'm not Ken. Myles is kind of he's kind of a even-keeled, mild-mannered guy, right? That he doesn't show a great deal of emotion. He doesn't show that you can't say he's got a real fiery approach and attitude. I mean, that's just not him.
Right.
That's not him. Well, he's a hell of a football player, but you got to expect more from your best. To expect a little bit more, need some more game-changing plays from Myles.
And I know he lost a family member, an uncle, within the past week or so. So maybe that was, on his mind.
Well, sure.
Everybody plays differently. I remember when Brett Favre lost his dad, right? On Monday Night Football, he went out and played the game of his life. Other people, it affects that. So I don't know how much that weighed on him or not. I don't want to seem like I'm, being too hard on him and not taking that into account, but not just today, Reg, right? I need big plays to be made from him in the bigger games, and maybe he doesn't have enough help. Maybe that's it. And so Andrew Berry's got to go find that, other bookend. Obo Okoronkwo had an okay season, right?
He did, yeah.
Ladarius Smith had an okay. There's still
decent.
Not enough, right? Even though it was the number 1 defense, but we could argue that, right? Number 1 defense at home, number 29th or 30th on the road.
Yes.
And so you can make the numbers say what you want them to say. So in order for that defense to take the next step, he's got to take the next step, as well as bringing somebody else in there that can make an impact defensively.
Well, and again, numbers are what they are, and how you put together a team defensive composite. But Kenny, I'd rather they be, as you just mentioned those numbers, home road. How about if they're like 7 and 8 in home road? I don't need them to be 1, okay? But you sure as hope. What are they, 29th on the road? They give up 31 points a game away from Cleveland Browns Stadium.
Yeah.
Is that not some right there? It's in that vicinity.
Right.
They're one of the bottom road defenses in the NFL. Well, I mean, that can't continue. You can't keep giving up near 30 points a game in your 8 or 9 away games. How in the hell are you supposed to do anything significant like that when you only you clean up at home? Well, let's bring some of that on the road too. I think that's the biggest thing they got to find a way with that defense for next year.
Yeah, and getting back to Garrett, Reg, 14 more sacks, I think, this year, right? 14 or 15?
A hell of a good year.
He did, and he's in the running for with T.J. Watt and Micah Parsons for Defensive Player of the Year. And maybe it's unfair, and I know LeBron used to get pissed at me when I'd ask him, why he had a bad game or what was it that led you to have a bad game? Why only asking me negative questions? Well, you've set the bar so high. When you don't achieve that, we want to know why. What was it? Was it just you having an off night? Was it what they did defensively, or were you sick? And I remember that night against Boston, and we found out later he was sick, but he'll never admit that, right? So you look at guys like LeBron, and Miles isn't quite in that level of superstar, but on this team he is, right? Then you expect him to play well. And I know, like I said, I think it was his uncle that he lost recently. And, everybody has different ways of how that affects them. And, or maybe that had no effect on him today and he just got outplayed by Laramie Tunsil, or the game plan wasn't. I don't know. But this team, if we're strictly talking on the field football stuff, right? Those are the areas I think they need to improve on. Defensively, Miles taking it to the next level and getting him some help with a legitimate other game changer on defense. Left tackle, wide receiver, and hopefully they bring back a healthy Dustin Hopkins next year, because without, who was more important to the Browns this year, Dustin Hopkins or Joe Flacco? Great question, right? That to me is a great question. As to which of those players would the Browns have not reached 11 wins with if they didn't end up on the roster? Because think about it. Go all the way back to Dustin Hopkins. He doesn't come to the team until the first week of the season, basically, when they cut Cade York, right? And then they bring in Dustin Hopkins, and he's booming 50-yard field goals through the uprights, 8 of 8, I think he was on the season, and game winners and making an impact. But then when the quarterback situation develops like it did, and you go through Deshaun Watson and Dorian Thompson-Robinson and P.J. Walker, Kid Dynamite, right? And then Flacco comes in and saves the day, winning 4 out of the last 5. So, those 3 players right there, Dustin Hopkins, Joe Flacco, and you throw in Myles Garrett because he was there from the get-go. Those were the 3 most important players in helping this team win 11 games and get to the postseason. But unfortunately, no Dustin Hopkins in the playoff game, right? Joe Flacco turned into Turnover Joe, unfortunately. And Myles Garrett did not have a very good game. All right, so there's my spiel on things, Reghi. Give me your final thoughts as we put this season to bed.
11-6 record. You like that. I think there was improvement made. And as we touched on here during the course of this R&R, a lot of positivity and things that you hope that continue to build in that fashion. But you don't like the way this ended with, mild and meek and just a pretty much an awful performance in the playoff game. So like everything, they're going to have to really look at it, Ken. There are areas of the football team, as we pointed out, that you're going to need improvement in. And now a lot of this goes to Andrew Berry, and to see what he can make some magic with, and maybe find some things to do as they pick up. To me, it's got to be more younger veteran players, rather than the draft. It's hard to do in this day and age of the NFL, but we'll see if Andrew Berry's got a little bit of magic that maybe he can help various position groups of this football team.
Yeah, he needs to find a way, Reg. They're going to have money under the cap, right?
Yes.
So they should be able to go out and put together a free agent wish list and have some money to spend but they're going to have to spend it wisely. And like I said, I'm looking for a left tackle, wide receiver, and then a defensive game changer. Those would be my top three. Are you? What order would you be in, or where would you, if you had to list three things you wanted Barry to get? What would they be?
Well, I'm definitely with you on those three, and I think all three of them are of equal importance. I need a defensive game changer, to sure. I might even put that at number one, and then that left tackle and the wide receiver room being added to, and have a guy who can get in the end zone and put points on the board for you there. But those three for sure, Ken. I think they got to be addressed. And if this team's got any opportunity to move forward and be the type of championship pedigree that I think all Browns fans are hoping for, then that's going to have to happen this offseason.
Yeah, and I guess as we exhale and we look back, upsetting the way it ended, if you're a Browns fan, embarrassing, right? Worst loss since 1968 in the postseason, but the fact that you were back in the postseason, glass half full, that's a positive, considering all the injuries that they went through. But now, Reg, okay, what do you do next? Do you build off of this, right? Do you not have a setback next year? Instead, is it one or two playoff wins next year as opposed to not making the playoffs? I think that's the biggest thing I'll need to see next year, and know that this team is headed in the right direction. They're going to have to take this further than what they did for me this year, which was, hey, 5th overall seed, not bad. With all the injuries, okay. Now use this as fuel to the fire. Hey, look at what the Ohio State Buckeye, and we haven't touched on this. Congratulations to the Michigan Wolverines. By far, best team in college football from start to finish. All the things they overcame, they were the best team out there. And look what the Buckeyes have already done in the offseason, Reg, right? They have taken that as fuel, watching their rival win it all. And how many guys are coming back to try and do what Michigan did with their returning senior class, and what Clemson did a few years ago with their returning class? Transfer portal already. Will Howard and the running back from Ole Miss, because they know they got their ass whooped again 3 years in a row, and their rival's the best team in college football. So that's the fuel that they use already going into next year. Well, the Browns need to use this 45-14 loss the same way, and let's see if that will affect them in a positive way next year.
Without question. And yes, a very strong and immediate response by the Ohio State Buckeyes, and kudos to them, because they needed to do that.
Yes, they did.
They needed to do it for all the reasons you just laid out. If they're going to have an opportunity they want to be at the top of the Big Ten to begin with. Well, the Big Ten, as we know, next year is going to get a little bit tougher, right? So
yep.
It's a very good beginning for Ohio State, and let's hope they continue on that throughout this offseason. Browns got to do much of the same thing as we just laid out. And so, again, we believe in, or most of us, believe in Andrew Berry and how he's able to roster construct. He needs to make some strong additions for this football team to get them where they need to be.
By the way, as we wrap up this R&R podcast, taping this on a Saturday night, 4 minutes to go in the game. Kansas City in control at home in -7-degree temperatures, 26-7. If you want to take a look on my Twitter or X or whatever the hell that thing's called these days page, at the Kenny Roda, you can see the snot sickles on Andy Reid's mustache in the photo that I took from the Peacock channel of Andy Reid having frozen snot on that big ass mustache of his on the sidelines. And once again, Reg, 0 for whatever it is now, Miami, 0 for 12 or whatever it is, under 40 degrees in the postseason, I think it is. They haven't won a game, and it continues here tonight.
Never a good thing for the fish, and they seem to just go under the water even further when the temperature gets cold like this. So they're going to be gone, and Andy Reid and KC are going to move on.
All right, Reg, we wrap this baby up. Coming up in the next few weeks, we're going to dive into Nick Saban retiring, 72 years old. Pete Carroll getting moved out as the head coach into the front office, 71 or 72. Who else was the old guy that got let go recently in that? Oh, yeah, Bill Belichick. He gets fired by Robert Kraft. So we'll get into who's going to replace those legends. And we'll talk some Cavs basketball.
Yes, definitely. I don't know how the Ohio State fans too feel about. You think most Ohio State fans are hoping that Jim Harbaugh gets offered and takes that job with the Los Angeles Chargers to get back in the NFL?
You know what? It's interesting because a few years ago, they wanted to give him a lifetime contract, Buckeye. There are mixed feelings about that, and we're all waiting to see if anything comes down as far as penalties. They already handed out penalties to Florida State, so we're waiting to see if anything comes down penalty-wise with that. But I think we've talked about this. I think there are two jobs out there that are begging for him to take it, and at the top of that list, I think, is the Chargers job. I think he would be ideal on. I know the Harbaugh family loves the West Coast, right, Reg? Yeah. And he coached at San Diego once before.
They got to have a quarterback, so you'll have your quarterback. Yep. I know he's a big Trevor Lawrence guy, and why not? So he'd have his young quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think there's a real good chance that that's where it winds up for him. Yeah.
You think he's headed to the Chargers then?
I kind of do. I mean, the last couple of days there have been some things out of Ann Arbor. They had their national championship parade and all of that. And, he's throwing out the, hey, haven't made a decision just yet. Same with J.J. McCarthy.
Right.
The feeling is if Harbaugh leaves, McCarthy's going to leave. If Harbaugh stays, McCarthy will come back and play his senior year as the quarterback. So, but it all rests on Jim Harbaugh. I still think that you won the national championship. You went 15-0.
Yep.
I mean, how many times let's be honest, I don't care what your name is as the head coach, Nick Saban. And I know Nick won 6. I get it. But how many times are you going to get a chance? You have an undefeated season, you win the national championship. How many times you think you're going to be able to duplicate that in the next 3 years, 5 years, 7 years?
Yeah.
I think it's tough.
I see him going to the Chargers with Herbert as his quarterback as well. I think that's the key for him there. And he can build around that.
Did I say Trevor Lawrence? I'm sorry, I meant Justin Herbert.
Justin Herbert. It's fine. Yeah. So I see that, being, and Jared Mayo has already taken over for Bill Belichick. So that one's, and Mike Vrabel is out there. I will say this, Reg. Buckeye fans are hoping Vrabel doesn't take a job this year, spends the season unemployed to wait and see what happens next year with Ryan Day, because if he loses a 4th straight year and doesn't make a 12-team playoff field, then he's going to be out. And I know a lot of Buckeye fans, are hoping that Vrabel would be at the top of that list should that happen, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yep, for sure. So all of that is in the offing. So. Yes. We've got a lot going on that we're going to be hot and heavy with in R&R, Kenny. Look forward to it.
Sounds good, Reg. Always great to catch up with you. Thanks once again to our producer, Ty Courts, for making sure you get this out there in the podcastosphere. And we'll be back in many different ways and forms in this new year. Just stay tuned to find out what we're talking about there. And please, if you haven't already, subscribe to the Reghi and Roda podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network and where all podcasts can be found.